Kajabi was an interesting one because we had heard about Kajabi so much with all the different creators that we worked with. And so one of our investors, Hinton Shaw, he knew one of the board members and he introduced us via email. And we knew because Kajabi was such a big player in the space and was so under-recognized too for how much traction there was, coming together would really turbocharge our ability to accomplish both of our missions, right? Like they wanted to empower creators. We also wanted to empower creators, but we wanted to empower the community as well. And so it was just a match made in heaven.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the WIM podcast. Women in Influencer Marketing is a first of its kind exclusive networking group made up of inspirational women. This podcast is where we explore influencer marketing and get real about women in business. Find us wherever you download podcasts. And of course, you can always find us at iamwim.com. That's iamwim.com.
I had such a big decision to make, you guys. I was like, do I record this now, knowing that I have like no makeup on my face, but I really need to get this intro recorded? Or do I like push it off and possibly not record it? God forbid I spend 5 minutes to put makeup on my face. And I was like, you know what? I think that a lot more of us need to take a stance on that because I love makeup. Like I enjoy makeup, but also don't need to have like a full face of makeup for every single thing that I do for this podcast. Like, come on. I mean, I know a lot of you are just listening, but I'm sure some of you also like watch on Spotify or YouTube or what have you. And like, I just don't have makeup on my face. So fresh face coming at you. I needed to record this intro and also like intentionally not wearing makeup. So anyways, I have so many feelings on that. But if I'm being really, really candid with you guys, it gave me anxiety. It gives me anxiety. And I don't know why. Like I'm not going to come off as professional. I think that's really what bothers me. Like, it's not really about the like, am I presenting pretty enough or attractive enough? It's actually like, I don't look professional enough because my hair is a little like crazy and unwashed and my face has probably like slight bit of leftover messy makeup from like me makeup, like probably yesterday, maybe the day before, let's be honest. Yeah. So I feel like work from home life was a thing before, and I feel like it's sort of faded away. And I think that like more companies are certainly expecting people back in the office, which is a whole other conversation. But I feel like even from home, there is not as much grace given to people who are working from home. Perfect example. My stepdaughter is home from school today and like she popped on a couple meetings. And I feel like prior in the like heat of the pandemic, people would have been so quick to be like, oh my God, if you need a minute, take whatever time you need. And it's not like anybody was like weird about it on my call today, but like certainly no one did that. Everyone was kind of like, I don't know. And again, this could all be in my head, but I'm curious what you guys think about this work from home thing post-pandemic. Are people less grace giving? Is the standard just getting higher? Like, could we just have our cameras off sometimes and it be okay? I was on so many calls just yesterday where people were excusing a million times for like, walking their dogs and things like that. And I'm the first person to be like, girl, walk your dog, have your camera off. Like, I am the last person to care. Like, I care what you have to say. I care what you are contributing to the conversation and if you're engaged or not. But like, first of all, someone was saying like, oh, I'm so sorry, it's so loud here. I'm like, well, I don't know. Your headphones are obviously really good because I actually can't hear the background noise. So like, get yourself a good pair of, good headset if you're like outside and have to do stuff. But also, I would so much rather have that person on the call than the person that's like sitting there with their camera on and you can just tell they're not paying attention to the conversation. Their eyes are slightly over and all over the place, maybe working on something else, not present at all. I don't want that person. Like, I'd rather have the person who's like out and about, being healthy, walking their dog, but actively engaged in the conversation and participating. Just me? I don't know. Anyways, I'm a little stressed this week, you guys. Not just for those reasons. Like, we just have so much going on at WIM. It's all good. I want everything to go well. I want everything to be as close to perfect as humanly possible. We have all these events coming up, which I know I'm talking about like week over week over week, but we have LA the 20th of June. We have the New York City experience on July 27th. And then we have Chicago officially at the end of August, the exact date being announced soon. But we do have a beautiful venue. It's going to be incredible. And it is the last week of August. So we will be announcing that date very soon. But I bring that up because like I am not an event planner. In fact, like my ADD brain makes it very hard for me to do certain things that are challenging. So I'm a little overwhelmed with the amount of details that need to be addressed for these events that we're expecting like 75 to 100 people. And so I'm like procrastinating stuff. And then it's making me more anxious because it's not getting done. So I'm like living in lists. I don't know about any of you guys if you relate to this. I've got like Evernote up on my screen right now. And I'm looking at my crazy long list. But if I don't make a list and if I don't drop my random idea that pops in my head 1 minute and out the other, if I don't drop it on that list, it will literally never get done. So I'm living in my lists. And I have found that when I'm feeling overwhelmed, like that is just the best way to like alleviate the anxiety. Because I think the overwhelm is, am I going to forget something or am I going to drop a ball, and not be able to complete part of this event, or I'm going to forget something or whatever it is. So I just make these crazy extensive lists. And if it's on my list, it alleviates the anxiety because at least I feel like it'll get done eventually, question mark. So today's guest, you guys, it was such a great conversation. I'm so excited for you to listen to it. So our guest today, her name is Teri Yu of Kajabi. I was excited to have her on. She was a great get for us. So Teri Yu, she was a great get for us. We were super excited to have her on today. And I'm so excited for you to listen to this conversation. She is a repeat founder who raised $2.5 million and successfully sold her company called Vibely to creator powerhouse Kajabi. So she has deep product and sales experience from working at two incredible companies, Asana and Microsoft. And she was also previously a viral YouTube creator herself. So she really gets it on so many fronts. If you guys are not familiar with Kajabi, like they are incredibly, first of all, just well known. I can't tell you how many people recommended Kajabi to us when we were building our community and our membership from the very beginning. And I totally explored Kajabi and really liked it. Transparently, we went with more of like a custom fit for a variety of reasons, but I'm not opposed to going to Kajabi in the future because they really, really impressed me. I think that this conversation is definitely great for talent managers and definitely great for creators because I think you guys hopefully are looking for additional revenue streams and to own more of your business versus being so reliant upon outside brands, outside algorithms that you just don't have control over. So Kajabi is this whole ecosystem, which we'll get into in our conversation, that really powers the ability to have your own brands, your own community. It's a really powerful, incredible platform. And Teri is sort of like at the epicenter of it. So I'm very excited for you to hear all about Kajabi, all about Teri, and enjoy, guys. So on today's show, we have Teri Yu. I have been super excited to chat with you today, learn all things about you, your professional background, all things Kajabi. But first and foremost, welcome and how are you today?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing wonderful. It's a hump day today, so in the middle of the week.
Right? It's so nice. And tell everyone where you're based.
I'm in San Mateo, which is 20 minutes south of San Francisco. Moved out here during the pandemic because I was starting to get a little grimy and less safe. So moved out here and have been enjoying this area since the pandemic.
Perfect. And I think a fantastic place to start. I want to go back. I want to start at the beginning. Tell us a little bit more about you growing up. Like, we know that you're in California now, but where are you from originally? And what are some like more formidable memories from your childhood that may perhaps have paved the way to where you are now?
Yeah, absolutely. I was born in Arizona and moved to LA for school, then went to SF afterwards to join tech. So from in Arizona, my parents actually immigrated from Taiwan. They were pretty on their own for a while. They didn't have much to support them or much resources out there. So my parents were just trying to make ends meet. We lived in a little apartment complex near ASU that was like run down. I think I remember them telling us stories about like we would hear a lot of arguing and some like, domestic violence cases next to it, which was really, really sad. But it was a kind of humbling experience to grow up that way. My parents would look for jobs just to try to make ends meet. My mom would go door to door in the apartment complex trying to find ways to make money by cutting people's hair, by babysitting their kids. And then my dad took up a job at the cafeteria at the school, and he just, you know, made ends meet as much as possible during the day and then came home at night to spend time with the family. But yeah, they really pulled themselves out of like that hole by working really hard and having persistence and grit to get through it, which has been inspiring for me to see because now I have kind of seen what you can do when you have almost nothing as a tool set other than just your sheer willpower. My parents had really broken English, so it's not like they had a lot coming in. They didn't have any particular skill sets at the time that really stood out. But the local community that they worked with, which is the Taiwanese American Association, was kind of their second family, where my dad, would kind of be part of that group and have his support for trying to help him find new jobs, new connections. And then my parents had that like mental and spiritual kind of like support as well. And so through all that, they were able to pull themselves out of that hole and now kind of standing on their shoulders. By no means did they become, the richest people in the world, but they were definitely, such an inspiration to me and made me work my tail off when it came to my own career and, making a difference in the world.
I mean, I appreciate your story so much. I think a lot of people can relate perhaps to being in an industry that their parents maybe don't necessarily have a familiarity with, right? A lot of, especially people who work in influencer marketing in some capacity, influencer marketing didn't even exist prior to them being in it. So, how do your parents look at your career path? Have they always been super supportive? Do they always understand? Did they have, things to contribute to your growth and advice to give? Or like, what were those conversations like?
Yes. So they haven't always been supportive of my exact career path. I think a lot of Asian American, our parents will just be, they're focused on the typical doctor, lawyer, scientist, like known academic like occupations. And so when I told my parents I was quitting, I used to work at Microsoft, then worked at Asana, which were companies that they had at least heard of a little bit. And when I told them I was quitting to start a company, they were shocked and appalled. Frankly, as much as I love my parents, they were quite unsupportive. My dad really questioned whether or not, I had the skill sets. He would ask me very frankly, like, do you really think this is the right thing for you to do? I don't know about this. And my mom would constantly tell me that this is a mistake. So she would actually tell her friends that, I still worked at these big companies like Microsoft. At some point, she got confused and told people that I worked at Google. And so it was a little disheartening in that sense. But despite it all, they had still supported me, like in terms of whatever I wanted to do. I knew that I had them behind me if everything failed. And I don't mean like financially, because we were by no means in that wealth class. It was more that if I really broke down from the entire process and just completely wasn't able to survive, that they would still be there emotionally for me. And so that was really nice to have, despite all the, hardship at the beginning. But to this day, I think they're now quite happy for me, but they're still actually more proud of my brother, which is quite fascinating because he was at Ivy League, he went to Yale, so he's still like the golden child. But it's something that I'm still like, very, very happy about, to have just like a family who even supports and recognizes like emotionally they're there for me, that I'm still someone like in the family that they are really proud of.
That's so funny. I was literally about to ask you, I was like, do you have siblings? Like, are you an only child? Is it you and your brother?
Yes, yeah. So I have an older brother. His name is Evan, and he works in a law firm, like a trade law and like consulting firm in DC. And so, yeah, it's interesting because despite all the success I've had, they're still very proud of him. And sometimes when they pitch me versus him, and like there's a conference that they were spinning up for Taiwanese American Association where they're doing speakers, and for him they said, oh, he's like renowned lawyer, like went to a prestigious Ivy League school. And then for me, they put like entrepreneur in parentheses, which is just hilarious.
That is pretty wild. So, like, how do you reconcile that? I mean, I've been very open on this podcast that, like, and I'm not saying this is what you have, of course, but I've been very open on this podcast how I actually don't have the closest relationship with my parents for a variety of different reasons. And oddly enough, like, they have been particularly supportive of, my career path. As someone, it sounds like you have a relationship with your family. I don't. How do you reconcile this? Like, do you look back and you're just like, it's just a cultural thing. It's just a generational thing. Both, they just don't understand. Like, they just want the best for me. Or like, is there, a desire there for them to change? What does that look like? Because I can imagine that, as anyone would, you want your parents' approval. You want your parents to be proud of you. So I don't know. How do you reconcile that?
Yeah, so there's two ways that I think about it. The first is just generationally and culturally, things are very different. So because they, emigrated from Taiwan, their just cultural values are night and day with what, we expect in the US. And then it's also a generational like time difference as well, because, they grew up in a different era where, being a doctor or a lawyer was the most advanced and prestigious thing you could have done. So I don't really fault them for it. I think it makes me understand, even though, they're not as proud of me as I would have wanted. I still understand why and where they're coming from. In some ways, I'm actually grateful because, like, I think they almost sacrificed their closeness and like a relationship with me so that we could have a better life, right? Like they came here to the States so that our family and my brother especially could have a great, childhood, could actually have an opportunity to pursue the American dream. Like I would by no means be where I am today without the opportunity to be here. And so, yeah, I think despite that, I'm still very like happy and grateful that they took this opportunity. The second way I think about it is like your parents will always prioritize your safety over your growth, because what they would hate, what would just, be such a loss for them at the end of the day is if anything were to happen to us in any way. It could be like, you lose your job and your financial security. It could be that you are on the street and it's unsafe for whatever reason, right? Like if you ask your parents, should I do X? They're always going to be seeing it through the lens of, okay, how do I protect my child or my family member as much as possible? Like if you're to imagine your brother or your sibling coming to you and asking you like, should I pursue this highly risky thing that is fairly unsafe that most people fail at? Most of the time, I think because you care about their well-being and you want them to continually be part of your life and have a good, secure life, you'll recommend the thing that is safer. And so it's something that I now have opened my eyes to. And when you're thinking about what to do next, when you get the family advice, you always should caveat it with the fact that it's not always like going to be the best advice for your personal growth, because personal growth does require sacrifice. It does require risk. And at the end of the day, if that's important to you, you need to consider the family advice as one like grain of salt.
That is a really healthy approach. I'm sitting here being like, oh, safety over growth. That's a very healthy approach. Cause like, well, it makes logical sense. I hate when people sort of like come up with these phrases that sort of almost seem to like excuse away things. And I don't sense that with this. Like it seems very logical. It makes sense that they would feel that way. And I also appreciate that you're saying, if growth is something that is particularly important to you, that like really makes you feel as if you're, living this really fulfilled life, then perhaps go to a friend, perhaps go to a business mentor who that would be the line of thinking or the lens that they would look through, as somebody who's giving you advice and sort of like advising you along the way. So I really, really appreciate that. So you also spoke about like risk taking. And I'd love to dive into, I guess, first learning about your former company, Vibely, which you started back, I believe, in 2018. Is that right?
Yep. 2018.
And then it was acquired by Kajabi, which I've known about Kajabi now for at least a few years. And for anyone who's listening who doesn't know, they've helped creators earn over $5 billion worth of revenue. And that's probably a slightly outdated statistic, too. It's over that now. So I guess I'd love to just hear first about like what made you want to start, launch, build, and create Vibely back in 2018.
Yeah, so many inspirations here, but the first comes in the fact that my family was part of this local community and it was really important to their ability to get through the hard times. So growing up, I always had this support system around me. I never felt like there was a single point of failure, meaning if there was something that was wrong, that no one would be there to kind of at least talk about it and be an ear to help us through it. So I think seeing the power of community, it's always been something that I've wanted to recreate, especially in our like nowadays when we're seeing everyone tethered to their screens. There's this obsession with screen time and like this lack of local like places and religion that's kind of dissipating. So I've wanted to create a place where people could actually have meaningful social connections and really just be enriched by the people around them. So it started with that mission, but the reason why I started to become very preoccupied with this particular mission was because I worked in product management at Asana and just a couple of other companies. And what I saw was this A/B testing experimentation framework that every tech company does, whether it's Meta, Snap, all the companies do. They optimize for a couple of key metrics, which is often app sessions, which means like, do you come back to the app repeatedly? And B, it's also dwell time or session time, which is how long do you spend on it? So when you're using an app like TikTok, right, all they want you to do is open the app maximum amount of times a day. They also want you to come back to the app multiple times or spend a lot of time in the app as much as possible. And so their goal is to basically take over your life, right? And while that's good for the company because they can serve more ads at the end of the day, it's bad for us as consumers because now we are living a life through our phones. And there's this idea of doom scrolling that's becoming more and more well known, where we're spending so much time on our phones that once we unplug from it, we start to feel really empty, really unhappy. Depression is at an all-time high. Teenage suicides are at an all-time high. So there's definitely an issue that I think society hopefully will start realizing and, curving back to like a more healthy lifestyle. But because this mattered so much to me, I quit my job, which was super secure at the time, but decided it was the right time for me to work on something that was quite meaningful to me. So we started Vibely, which was a way for communities to have those meaningful relationships. We have like in real life meetups, there was discussions that were lively, there were challenges that got people to take action together. And then we started working with creators because of I had a creator background at the time in 2011. My dog went viral. I could tell you that story as well. But we started to work with these creators and they were hosting really powerful peer-to-peer communities where people were learning together. They were, developing business connections together. Some people were meeting as friends and traveling together. But they were able to accomplish more collectively than they were able to alone. And so once things started really taking off, we were growing at 59% revenue month over month. We also worked with thousands of creators. And then we kept hearing about this company named Kajabi. Kajabi, as you know, powers over 5 billion creator revenue. And we were really excited to potentially join forces. And so started having these conversations. And yeah, it's panned out the way it did today.
I mean, isn't that cool that like the story of this, the origin story of this company, Vibely, which is such a good name, by the way. Like, I appreciate the heck out of a good name. And Vibely is such a good name. It goes back to your roots. So I think it's really beneficial that we heard your story, your origin story, because of course it impacts your baby, your company. So it sounds like you were looking for ways to partner perhaps with Kajabi, and then that sort of turned into them acquiring your company. Now, I know that some of our listeners are either in the process of looking for somebody to perhaps acquire them, or haven't acquired or have acquired companies, and can understand and relate that that is like such a wild time. Essentially, if it's your company, it's a huge decision to make. And so I would love for you to sort of talk about just the acquisition process as much as you can, of course, like what it's like to sell your company, and make that ultimate decision. Like, why did you decide that it was right for you?
Yeah. So it started when we got a Series A term sheet. So we were actually looking to raise to continue to pummel forward and, upstage the company. The valuation was good, but it was not as amazing as I wanted. And so that prompted me to start talking to a few companies that had reached out, including companies like Patreon, Google. It's kind of determine the risk reward of continuing. So I approach it in a very scientific way where it's like, okay, what are the benefits of continuing? What are the costs to continuing? And at the end of the day, does that make sense? And once I started these conversations with a bunch of these companies, more of these opportunities popped up. And Kajabi was an interesting one because we had heard about Kajabi so much with all the different creators that we worked with, right? They were all saying, oh, I do need a community because I have my courses, my coaching, and my podcast on Kajabi, but I need a place for people to actually interact with each other and to scale my time. And so this was such a common occurrence that Kajabi was only ones that I proactively reached out to try to start that conversation. And so one of our investors, Hinton Shaw, he knew one of the board members and he introduced us via email. I had a conversation with the CEO and the CPO. We kind of just talked about the potential synergies. I told them about our vision for Vibely, what our team was like, the DNA, and how we've been successful so far. And that prompted probably a series of 5 to 8 more courting conversations where we pulled in the VP of product, we pulled in the CTO, we pulled in the CMO, and it kind of just became this conversation where we got to know each other and saw how good the culture fit was. And we knew because Kajabi was such a big player in the space and was so under recognized too for how much traction there was, coming together would really turbocharge our ability to accomplish both of our missions, right? Like they wanted to empower creators. We also wanted to empower creators, but we wanted to empower the community as well. And so it was just a match made in heaven. And now, we've rebranded Vibely as Kajabi Communities, which is a little sad given that you like the name, but it is also an amazing opportunity because there's, thousands of creators that are now all using the platform. I think there's 75 million customers on Kajabi today, and all that is, being united. And it's just really exciting now to see the product take off.
It is a good name. And so you join forces, turbocharging each of your missions, and tell us more about your experience today. Some people have their companies get acquired and they sail into the sunset. Others, it's like their baby. They're like, I have to be there to sort of help with the transition. And then others just stay and continue on with the company. So you are with Kajabi today, Kajabi Communities specifically. And so tell us about what you were doing at Vibely combined with Kajabi and what it looks like today.
Yes. So I'm now Kajabi's director of product. And I also write for the Forbes Business Council on how to build strong online communities for Kajabi. I was awarded Blogger Innovator of the Year at some point. So now I'm currently just making sure that the integration for Kajabi communities goes as well as possible, right? We really want to empower creators to be very successful in their businesses, to continue to scale, to continue to have vibrant communities. And so we worked on the integration around January launch. And that was a big deal. Like we had people just flooding into the platform and leveraging as much as possible. There was a lot of feedback we got, a lot of good feedback, a lot of improvements needed. And so we've been working heads down, just getting that all done. So nowadays, I'm still leading the team there. We're still, rapidly working on improvements. I think we ship over, 5 to 10 things a week. And that's all just to continue to improve the experience. In terms of like my founder DNA, I definitely still have, the itch comes back. I think about and have a lot of creative ideas that I want to pursue. But the good thing about how Kajabi set it up today is they've given me a lot of like autonomy. They've given me a lot of space to experiment, and they really entrust me to take on a lot of responsibilities and take on new initiatives. So because of that culture, it actually fits really well. So there's a lot of ways that I want to help Kajabi become better or improve like the company or processes. And whenever I have an idea, I just run forward with it, find the stakeholders internally to make it happen. And it's pretty exciting to see the impact that it has to the company and both our creators and its customers.
It sounds like it's something that's really important to you. And like, I can totally relate to that. Like, I can imagine that going from, you worked at some large companies prior to Vibely, but then, to take the leap to do your own thing and like build that, like, it's such a unique experience. So, to then go to another company that like your company was integrated into, it can go in different directions. So it's really smart of them to sort of approach it the way that they have. And sort of really, it sounds like they're empowering you and giving you the autonomy and things like that. So it's really smart of them to do. Tell us a little bit more about like the struggles that Kajabi customers experience and how Kajabi communities really solve those problems and struggles.
Yeah. So a lot of different creators come to us at different stages. So some will come in the beginning of their career in terms of maybe they're a coach, maybe they're an author, maybe they're just starting out, new course, or they're some kind of expert in the field. And then we have the other side of it, which are people like Jay Shetty, Blogolates, like Ali Abdal, like these huge creators that already have massive followings and they, want to help others learn and grow from their experiences, their passions. So that whole range has very different problems, but they generally come to Kajabi to start that business, monetize. Creators make over 5 million a day collectively on the platform, which is just a testament to how well the platform like powers the backbone of these businesses. And then how Kajabi Communities comes in is there gets to a point in creator tenure where you want to start scaling your time. It's a really important part of anyone, whether you're an employee or a business owner or you're a creator. There's a point where you need to be able to make more money from doing less. And that's where communities comes in, right? There's one model where you can have a free or a low ticket community where you are empowering people to learn from each other, grow from each other, have amazing discussions, get feedback, get accountability, collaborate, new nodes of connecting that are just not possible on social media today, which is a good place to build an audience, but not a good place to build a business. And then you have a second type of community, which is often like higher ticket, a little bit higher effort, but much more like lucrative as a program. Think of things like masterminds or like really intimate, exclusive communities. But the way that it scales a creator is that it's still giving you that collaborative environment where the network nodes are connecting, but you're making a lot more money per individual. And so it's well worth your time, even though you're spending maybe like 1 hour a week doing lives or 2 hours a week, just like making sure the community goes well. It's still a very well worth it when you think about the ROI of like making thousands per month per member in your community, if not tens of thousands in some communities. Have you ever heard of a mastermind before or had one yourself?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Of course.
Yeah, so that's definitely like the second model of, this high ticket, lower mid touch community. And we definitely recommend a lot of creators who are looking to scale themselves, like look into that model.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. Just popping in to remind you to check out Women in Influencer Marketing, the membership community. So if you're enjoying this podcast, this is just a sliver of all that we are. So we have a mentorship program. We have casting opportunities. We have 24/7 community forums. We have events in real life, virtual masterclasses, and so much more. Those women who join our membership have had amazing things to say. We've been around since 2017. And if you're not a part of it, you are absolutely missing out. So I encourage you to check out our website, iamwim.com, and learn all about us. iamwim.com. If you go to the events page also, you'll see that we have a regular event, Get the Most Out of Your Membership. It's for new members, but it's also for those of you who might be curious, like, what is WIM? Do I have a place there? How do I fit in? Come join. I'm there live. So are lots of other people. And it's a cool opportunity for me to teach you all about what we have to offer. Also, giving you this freebie, we actually give away a month free when you attend. So if you're interested in not only learning about WIM, but also experiencing a whole month free, definitely check it out. You can go to our website again. It's iamwim.com. That's iamwim.com. Sign up for our next event. And I look forward to seeing you hopefully around the WIM community.
So interesting. I think that, we talk a lot about it on this show, and I certainly hear it a ton in the creator economy broadly. That, I guess influencer marketing from our vantage point was really the huge monetary opportunities seem to have been predominantly built upon brand partnerships, which is fine. And that's great. And, a lot of people listening to this show, their role is very heavily involved in that. So I think that lately I've been hearing a lot more about, well, the, economy has taken a turn and brand partnerships are a little bit slower, or we just don't want to be so heavily reliant upon, money that we can't necessarily control as like a creator or as a talent manager. It's very much out of your control in terms of how often or how much these brand partnerships are going to be worth. So I think that as creators and as their talent managers continue to have more of like a savvy business mindset, it just makes so much more sense for them to think about all of the additional revenue streams that they can and should be exploring. And so, people ladder like communities. I mean, it makes so much sense. Of course, that's what most creators have on the social platforms. But I think what really resonated with me with what you were saying is, those platforms aren't necessarily conducive to monetizing those communities, right? They're launching like little features here and there, but nothing that's meaningful enough. And certainly it's going to be such a time suck because it's not purposefully built to do that. And so I love what you guys have built and are continuing to build. And I think it's just really smart. But I just want to make sure that our talent management community in particular is like taking notice of what you guys are building, because I think that, so many creators are, what have you done for me lately to their managers? And I think that a lot of our management community should really put your platform on their radar because it's so important to know about.
And yeah, coming from the tech side, I can speak by personal experience that, these platforms like TikTok, Meta, Instagram, like they are all beholden to this system that I talked about, which is all about monetizing through ads, right? They may experiment with new ways of helping creators monetize, but their bread and butter and their focus, it will always be, how do I get people to spend more time on this app? And so while creators can continue to build presence and like should have a presence on these social media platforms, at the same time, it's not a reliable system that will help them grow their business or even attain any kind of psychological security in the future. Right. So at some point, once you build that audience or even a smaller audience, you have to start thinking about a long-term sustainable growth plan. And that's where platforms like Kajabi come in, where it becomes your like zone of safety or your ability to monetize in your direct to fan or direct to follower like model where you can reach them via emails. You have them in your community and can broadcast an announcement anytime. They regularly hear from you. You're not like at the whim of an algorithm. So I always recommend to creators that I talk to, like, keep going on the social media platforms, like pick one or two that you're, happy with, that resonates with the way that you produce, but don't like lock yourself in there for too long because once Twitter might shut down or TikTok gets banned, like what is going to happen? Like you need to make sure that you have your career plan kind of mapped out the same way that any other like founder or employee would.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that so much. And again, like I think the social platforms lean really heavily into the ads. You're saying how, the social platforms, like their agenda is how to sell more advertising and having a presence on them will also, yield money for the creators in terms of brand partnership and be very top of funnel and continue to grow your audience. I think like, I don't know, the way that I describe even our community is like the people who are our members like there are super fans. Like they are the ones who are like obsessed with influencer marketing and really take it that much more seriously. But we have, our Instagram followers and we have people on our email list and stuff like that. And those are people who are lurkers. Those are people who will dip in and dip out. And I think that no matter what your community looks like, there are probably going to be all of those types of people. But to be able to have the tools to be able to really maximize, sell to provide more value to your super fans is a really incredible thing. And to have it all sort of in one place is huge and have it be like a really purpose built platform. Understanding all of the nuances that are necessary to be able to cater to that community and to be able to build what you want to build. I'm curious. So, having had your own company, having it be acquired now at Kajabi and like building all the incredible things that you're doing, I'm sure you've received a lot of professional advice along the way. Can you share your best or worst piece of professional advice that you've ever received?
So, the number one thing that has made me successful, and I've heard this from so many founders, but I think it's really just the key to anyone's success is persistence. You'll hear this with content creators, you'll hear this with founders, but I think the people who succeed aren't smarter, aren't more talented than anyone else. They're actually just the ones who don't give up as easily. Right. And if you continue in different directions and don't give up, you're almost like guaranteeing your chances of success for your own career, for your own life. And so learning from my parents and seeing just like my mom accomplish everything that she could without even much helping her, I definitely learned from that. And I am probably one of the most like relentless people that I know. When I see a problem, I go out of my way to fix it. I don't let anything hold me back. Like I might hit 1 to 100 hurdles along the way, but I bash through that wall just to make it happen. And that is essentially what made me successful here versus others. It's nothing in particular that I knew or did. Although strategy can obviously be an accelerant. But yeah, that is something that I continue to tell others. It's like, if you want something, if you want to accomplish this goal, like the only thing you need to do is set that goal and start taking a series of baby steps to make it happen. When you hit a hurdle, and you inevitably will, it's your failures that will define your successes. And if you're not hitting any failures, you're not going to hit many successes, just how it is. So I continue to really live and breathe that mantra. The worst advice I've ever gotten, I'm not sure. I think all advice has its merits in its own way. I think as like society, we tend to think of success as like the marker of happiness. And so one thing I've kind of realized is how little accomplishing milestones will actually drive permanent happiness. And so you always think like, if I get that job, if I accomplish this revenue goal, if I hire this person or raise this much money, I'm going to be happy. That's the moment I'm going to be happy. The moment I'm featured on TV, that's it. I've made it. And it's never like that. When you get to that point, you'll feel a little dopamine and some happiness come from it, but it really quickly fizzles out and you start thinking about the next milestone. And, even I remember the moment that we were featured on Forbes or TechCrunch, like, I think I saw the article, was relieved it went out as expected, and then immediately went on to, okay, now we have to actually, build something more meaningful. This is not actually that great because now it means we have more pressure, blah, blah, blah. So I think appreciating the joy in the process is super important to maintain real happiness long term. And as society, we've told ourselves this big lie that once we accomplish our goals, we'll be happy. And it's never like that. When a lot of founders, when they exit, they will actually be really depressed. Even, they had $100 million outcome, $1 billion outcome. You've seen founders like, I think, was it Kate Spade who committed suicide? So yeah, there's just too many instances of this where we think that outcome will make us happy, but actually we feel aimless, we feel lost, we feel like we don't know who we are anymore, and like, what is the point of life? And it becomes super existential. So all that to say, enjoy the journey and find the happiness from that, because you won't find happiness even when you reach destination.
That is so relatable because, as somebody who has the capacity and the drive to build a company, there are like continuous dopamine like hits that you're getting. And there is just that like persistence and that drive and just, I guess, overall the purpose. It's so wrapped up in your identity, to your point. It's super relatable to want that thing and then you get it. And then it's like, well, what's the next thing? And that's just like a really dangerous way to go about life because are you ever happy? Are you ever satisfied? And so I guess my follow up question would be like, I was literally talking about this last night as we're like after work watching TV. And I'm like, I wonder what other people do like after work when they truly shut down, like to have fun. Like I felt like in my 20s, I was a workaholic, like or I was just working 24/7 or finding other things that were disguised as fun, but were inevitably feeding into my business and all about business. And, his response was like, I think this is just what it feels like to relax. And maybe you just need to get more used to that. And like, I don't know how to think about it. This literally happened last night, so I'm still trying to figure it out. But like, I guess my question to you is like, what do you do for fun? What do you do to, have that more fulfilled life that isn't all about work? And what are some things that fill up your time, in those extra hours?
So when I was working on Vibely for 5 years, I honestly didn't have a outlet. I think I basically spent most of my day staring at my computer, which is ironic given the mission that we had. I just wanted to make it happen so badly. I was just tied to my computer, like constantly getting things done. I couldn't even really enjoy like any kind of travel or vacation because I would just be so stressed, and not moving was making me more stressed and actually, getting work done. So I think that was a lesson for me because I did burn out after the 5 years. It was just not sustainable. I didn't have any hobbies. I eliminated my social life. I focused on just building the company. And so having like a way to enjoy it along the way would have been a much better, longer term solution to making it happen. But today, post acquisition, I have a lot more time, and it's because we're now a like much bigger collective organization. I think there's about like 400 people at the company today. And so, it's not all on me. If, something goes wrong, like there's a lot of people who are all fixing it as opposed to just me being the one needing to handle it. And so it's been nice and refreshing actually, because I've been able to like think about other things in my life that I've been not tending to for a while. So, for example, we just bought a house in San Mateo. It's gorgeous, as you can see, but we renovated some of it, and I've been doing some like interior design on the side and just like channeling my creativity through other ways. But I am now also working on other projects. Like I'm writing a book. I think a specialty of mine is how to network really quickly in like 10 minutes or less. And so I've broken it out into basically 4 different phases that is a playbook. And I'm essentially writing it into this book. And so I know books are not like the biggest revenue generator, but it's a way for me to like put all the energy and creativity I have into something that's meaningful to me. But other than that, I guess I'm really into like singing and eating and traveling. Nowadays, I'm going to a lot of conferences and either speaking or, helping Kajabi represent. And yeah, it's been a great time afterwards, but I'm grateful that I can enjoy it and actually find happiness from it because a lot of founders actually can't.
Yeah, I've seen that, and it is really wonderful that you've been able to find that and, enjoy the home renovations. We just recently bought a house like a couple years ago, so we like just hired an interior designer to like start to finally fill out like our furniture and stuff like that. So this is what it feels like to relax, I guess. It feels weird, but I guess that's the point, right? Like we all work so hard, and I can relate a lot to, your work being so wrapped up in your identity. And there's also just such a thing as like if we repeat habits and we repeat patterns over and over and over again, like that is just what you become so used to. And so, whether they're healthy or unhealthy, it can just be hard to break those patterns. Just this past couple weeks for Mental Health Awareness Month, we had a whole episode about just like how to approach your mental health. And anyways, we were talking a little bit about things that just sort of snap you out of your routine, like simply, spraying some perfume, like scent just will immediately snap you out of that of a certain mentality and sort of like a reset button. And for some people it's taste. So, some people just going to a nice restaurant, like they can immediately sort of relax because just sensorily, like they can just switch into a different mindset. So I just appreciate all that perspective so much. Is there anything that you can give us a first look at in terms of maybe what's on the horizon for Kajabi communities? I'm sure you guys are like building things all the time. Is there anything that you can preview with us today?
Yes. Okay. So Kajabi as a company has been working on a lot of cool stuff. I think in particular, a lot of AI driven improvements. So you can have a course outline, a coaching outline developed for you instantly instead of starting with a blank slate. A lot of our creators will look at it to edit it and add on top of it so they can spin in their own personal brand and style. For Kajabi communities, we're working on a lot of customization options. And so that's the number one thing we've heard from creators on Kajabi is they want to make it completely their own in every single way. And so that's something that's on our current priority. And we're rapidly shipping things to make that happen. The next thing is we are also integrating elements of AI. Surprise, surprise, because we really care about scaling creators' time. And AI is a great way to make that happen, whether that's, sparking conversation through starter questions or ways to like assimilate kind of the sentiment and the trends that our people are already talking about in the community and making it easy for you to surface those. Or it's like exclusive challenges that are about the course content that you create or the things that people are already thinking about in the community discussions. Or it could be as simple as like a one-click way for your community to get started up without, the creativity or like the downtime to think about what could be in it. All that are things that we are thinking about. But we're also long-term definitely going to integrate the Kajabi core product and the communities product really intimately together. So you'll see things like the courses linked directly to challenges. So you can create a call to action where 7 days of meditation happens after you release a meditation like lesson. Or let's say you have a photography, how to shoot landscapes. You could have a landscape photo battle in a challenge. So ways to really tightly integrate that. There's also ways that you can, like, once you have your community members, you can segment those into email drips or campaigns that target specific actions within the community. So that might be like someone who liked this post about the merch that you had just announced. Okay, then can you segment them into email campaign and send them more information about it? So we're going to become the most powerful tool for communities and creators by far with all these really advanced integrations. And it's something that's already baking. So it's going to be exciting to see that come out.
I'm just obsessed with everything that, like, I love the mission. I love, giving back time. I was just having a conversation with somebody the other day, and it sort of sounded like they were in that moment coming to the realization of how hard it is to be an influencer and a creator. And my background in particular is in management. So for years, I guess, like, if you ever, in whether it's firsthand, secondhand, have a clear line of sight into what it takes to be a successful creator, you respect the hell out of it. And so I think that it's just really powerful that you guys have built and are continuing to build the tools that professionalize everything that they're doing, make it simpler to accomplish their goals, make it more streamlined, efficient, like all the things. So it's been such a pleasure, like, getting to know you, getting to know more about Kajabi and how all of our, like, listeners and people who are watching on YouTube can just take advantage of everything that you guys have to offer. So I have a feeling that some members of our community are probably going to reach out. And if and when they do, what's the best way for them to connect? Is it LinkedIn? What's the best way for them to reach out and connect with you?
It's so funny because I tell people to contact me. If it's professional, it's usually LinkedIn. But because I want to, be there for anyone who has any questions, if you want to DM me on Instagram, my Instagram handle is a little funny. It's teriyaki chicken. I've had multiple publicists tell me to change my handle, but I still love it and I want to keep it. But if you want to DM me and just ask questions, like if you have needed any advice, happy to give you my best thoughts on that. And especially in regards to Kajabi, we might have ways to help you get started that I can send over. So yeah, I'm really excited to kind of hear from everyone.
And we will link all of those in the show notes of the episode. So don't worry. And you should totally keep that handle. It's so good. But don't listen to those publicists. They're just doing what they think they should be doing. They're trying to help. So thank you so much for coming on today. It's been such a pleasure. And for everyone who is tuning in, we will see you guys next week.
If you enjoyed this episode, we gotta have you back. Check out our website for more ways to get involved, including all the information you need about joining our collective. You can check out all the information at iamwim.com. Leave us a review, a rating, but the most important thing that we can ask you to do is to share this podcast.
Thanks for listening.
Tune in next week.
Tune in next week.